years ago today, the city of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast changed forever as Hurricane Katrina made landfall as a monster Category 3 storm. Nearly 1,400 people were ultimately killed. More than 1 million were displaced from their homes, and New Orleans was mostly underwater after the levees failed, causing catastrophic flooding all across the city. Here's a clip from former amazing CNN reporter Jeanne Meserve describing what she was seeing on the ground 20 years ago today.
It's been horrible. As I left tonight, darkness, of course, had fallen, and you can hear people yelling for help. You can hear the dogs yelping. But for tonight, they've had to suspend the rescue efforts. It's just too hazardous for them to be out in the boats.
We all watched in horror and heartbreak as the chaos unfolded in the days that followed after the levees broke, and help did not come.
We won't help! 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 We won't help!
All these people you see here down.
I have 4 kids. I don't have nobody. I lost everything. I don't have nothing, and I'm looking for my grandmother. I just want to go home. I want to get from out here. That's sad. We homeless. I never lived like this.
There were like bodies floating past my front door, you know? Bodies floating past my front door. I've never seen anything like this.
Joining me now is historian Douglas Brinkley, who is the author of The Great Deluge, Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans, and the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Doug, thank you for being here. You were living in New Orleans when Katrina hit after the storm. You helped rescue people. What's the memory most seared in your memory now, 20 years later?
Well, I was a professor at Tulane University, and I did a vertical evacuation right over the Mississippi River. And when the storm came, Katrina roared into town. As I was stunned to see the Mississippi River going in the opposite direction because I knew the power of the river so well. And then right after the winds died down, I wandered around and I thought maybe New Orleans had missed the big one. There was a lot of debris around the French Quarter, a lot of wires down. It was a mayhem of sorts. But it's only as I walked and kept exploring further that I realized that the levees had breached 3 major levees and water pouring in. And New Orleans is below sea level. So it's like a bowl, a saucer. The water from those levees breached just started filling the city. And then with electricity out, it was horrifying at night because you knew people were trapped in buildings. You didn't know how to get to them. And it seemed like there were no first responders in sight.
Your book that I mentioned, The Great Deluge, was published in 2006 and had an author's note that I want to read to our viewers. You said, quote, "There is, in my opinion, no such thing as too many great deluge anecdotes and offerings. Only by remembering and holding city, state, and federal government officials responsible for the actions can true Gulf South rebuild commence in the appropriate fashion." How much do you think that we as a country, as a society, have really learned from Hurricane Katrina? How much has actually changed?
Well, people still don't want to connect climate change to increased cyclonic activity or the heating up of the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic. I'll leave that aside. I think the city of New Orleans got billions of dollars federal appropriations to rebuild the levee system in a much sturdier way, and we have to thank the Army Corps of Engineers for that effort that they've done there. A big thing was the shutting down of Mr. Go, the Mississippi River Gulf outlet. This was a boondoggle, brainless idea of connecting ships from the saltwater Gulf to the freshwater Mississippi by building a shortcut. And that canal, Mr. Go, became a wind tunnel that just poured surge into New Orleans. And you had the National Guard at Jackson Barracks just swamped with water coming. So I think some of this has been rectified, but no city, particularly New Orleans, is prepared for a direct hit 4 or 5. because we're losing wetlands in Louisiana daily. We used to say a football field a day, but it's worse than that now, which means no wetlands. That Gulf surge can hit these levees and find ways into the city of New Orleans. So it's still, we've done a good job, but there's still anxiety that if the big one comes, we're not sure whether the city will be prepared or not.
Doug, I was covering the White House when Katrina hit. I was actually part of the press pool that went with George W. Bush to New Orleans for the first time he was there. Needless to say, his presidency never really recovered from the way that the government botched the response. I want our viewers to listen to an infamous moment when the president praised his then FEMA director, Michael Brown.
Again, I want to thank you all for, and Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. The FEMA director's working 24. They're working 24 hours a day.
Now, Brown resigned because of incompetence. And just fast forward now to where we are, and it's a moment where the former and current FEMA workers are claiming that President Trump's overhaul of FEMA could lead to catastrophic failures in future disaster response. It was such a moment that we remember there are times when the government is very much needed.
Well, FEMA was created by President Carter, and it had its heyday under Bill Clinton's two-term presidency under McWhitt, and he did a great job. And then you ended up having Brownie. Brownie was the head of the Arabian Horse Society, a crony of George W. Bush. And the Bush administration had taken FEMA, basically wanted to get rid of it, but they stuck it in Homeland Security, defunded it. So there was no FEMA present. Brown couldn't have done worse. He was an AWOL, a zero. FEMA failed big, F. During Katrina, but the lessons that were supposed to be learned is why FEMA is important and why we have to put our resources and tax dollars into it. But alas, the Trump administration seems to be repeating the era of thinking that FEMA is just some feel-good liberal program instead of essential to deal with people in need in a very lickety-split fashion, whether they're hit by a tornado or flood or hurricane.
Well, I don't need to tell you this. This is one of a million reasons why it's important to know our history. Even in this case, pretty recent history. 20 years ago wasn't that long ago. Doug, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. It's always great to see you and learn from you.
Thank you. And a call out to all the people on the Mississippi Gulf Coast who got hit hard with Katrina and devastated, so many towns like Waveland and Bay St. Louis and Ocean Spring, et cetera. So we never want to forget them on anniversaries either.
Yep. Well said. Thank you so much.